I'm here joined today by Georgia Dienst. Her career background includes being at Google's Innovation Lab, Google X, where she scouted, selected, and mentored entrepreneurs and scientists from over 30 different countries to support them in building breakthrough technologies. She worked at Kernel, innovating in the field of neuroscience and neuromedicine. She spent a lot of time focused as an investor and a venture capitalist, and today she's a CEO coach to VC-backed founders, or like she likes to put it, the Olympic athletes of the professional world at Monarchy. Welcome to the intersection, Georgia.
Matt, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
What does it look like for you to be a CEO coach? I've met many different kinds of coaches, and some of them seem to be more legitimate than others. I'm still a little bit like the world of coaching is a little bit of a mystery to me still. So I'd love to hear your style.
That is awesome. Well, for me, it sometimes is a little bit of a mystery too, and somehow I found myself in the midst of being a CEO coach. I think if we look at the term coach, the one that we really resonate or understand the best is with regards to Olympian athletes. So to even qualify to go for the Olympics, it's usually anywhere between 5 and 10 years of training, or even lifelong, from teenagers on till they're like late 20s, depending on how quickly they progress. But and then during that phase, they have coaches to get them there. But once they're in that phase to really run for like the Olympics, they have a performance coach, a dietary coach, a relaxation coach, a mindset coach, etc., etc. And so we all this makes total sense. I mean, it's an Olympian athlete. Why should they not have coaches? And yet, if we compare them to CEOs, especially of startups and of companies that are going through these crazy growth spurts of there is just an idea to suddenly there's 1,000 people, the human endeavor that the CEO needs to go on, the fears they need to face, the uncertainty they need to tackle, the just personal growth, because you continuously need to grow yourself and innovate to suddenly lead 10 people, suddenly 100 people, suddenly 500 people. And these are often skills these people don't have. First-time CEOs, they didn't go to school to learn this. There is no school. The school is doing it. And so very similar to an Olympian athlete, CEOs are now having the ability to have a coach that supports them on the one hand, and that's what I do, very practically, very strategically on how do you build business, right? And Matt Mashari, who I now work with, has been doing this for the last 10 years in Silicon Valley. He's coached people like Naval and Sam Altman and the founders of Reddit and the founders of Coinbase, some of the really most extraordinary founders in our time. And he saw there's just very clear patterns. There's just certain mechanics on how to hold your one-on-ones, how to do team meetings, how to give good feedback so it lands. So he wrote a great book called The Great CEO Within, and there's an online resource where all of this is written out, where basically founders who are going on this incredible journey and have never done this before can just go, oh, this is how you do it. These are basic tools and strategies that we can implement. And so my role as a CEO coach is to really say, hey, what are your problems? Where are you experiencing issues? Where do you feel shortcomings in your leadership or in your way that you lead companies? And we work actively to basically help you as a CEO, as a founder, to overcome these and to make you the best possible leader.
It seems like coaching is best suited for extreme high performers, almost like coaching is meant for people who have to deal with being at the highest level. Am I off? I feel like life coaches that offer themselves to, I don't know how to put this, regular, I don't want to put it like that, but like more regular people, it doesn't seem as useful to me. I feel like you can get that kind of feedback from your friends in immediate circles.
I don't think I can comment on that. I'm not a life coach. I've never had one, so I don't actually know. And I bet there's incredible ones, and I can't touch that. I think what I'm really focused on is this idea of helping people in the business domain and in the domain of really excelling at building companies, and thereby when you build a company with many people, you also by default become a leader, whether you like it or not. You're leading 20 people, you're leading 100 people. and again, unless you've had a really incredible father, mother, which are very rare, I think we can all agree, you don't learn these skills. These are not skills that are just being thrown around in our society, especially if we look at politics and into some of the more famous politicians out there. We would all agree that there's a real lack of leadership and a lack of integrity, lack of values, right? And so we don't get it role modeled. So I think it's we're living in sadly a difficult time where these important skills are actually not abundant.
That's a very good point. I actually think about that a lot, that even many leaders at the highest level in the world aren't actually very good role models for good leadership, which is kind of unfortunate. Going off of that, what is a good example of a good role model of leadership in your opinion?
I think it's always changing and morphing. And the beautiful thing about it, I don't think there is a like, okay, this is what a great leader is. Yeah, I really think obviously it starts with having integrity, authenticity, the ability to also show vulnerability, the deep quality of listening as a leader and admitting that you might not know things, right? So these are all, starting stones. But the beautiful thing about leadership, and this is what I think many people come to me like, I want to be a great leader. Where's the PowerPoint? And it's not so much that you can get all these skills and then you're a great leader. It's actually more, how do you become the most authentic, real you? Because then people are attracted to that and want to be led by that. Because there's engineering orgs where the leader might be incredibly, introvert and calm and quiet and patient and very smart, but just a very introvert person. And there will be people who really love that. And then you'll have leaders who are maybe the head of a sales org who's just more loud. And so they're more loud, they're more charismatic, they're more, all these sort of things. And not all leaders need to be charismatic. Not all leaders need to be engaging. Not all leaders. That's the fallacy. I think essentially we all have this capacity in us. And the minute we all become parents, or if we choose to become parents, we naturally get put into this role because there are these small people who follow us, whether we like it or not. And that's the challenge of really embodying what integrity means and embodying what vulnerability means and embodying, oh, I fucked up, I'm sorry.
I love that. There's no set example of what a good leader is. It's more about being the best version of who you are as an individual, and then that will attract certain kinds of people within your circle. That's so interesting. Yeah. So then there can be many different plethora of what great leaders look like.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
That's just that, and that is the hard and the easy bit. It's so hard for us to really be authentically us because we are so primed from childhood and from society to be more like this and more like that. And if you do this, everybody goes, well done. And then you have a few more likes or here. And so we are so externally focused that actually truly coming to who am I, what do I love, and who am I authentically is actually, it's the hardest thing in the world, I think. And yet it's the most fulfilling and the most rewarding thing that we can all try and do in our lifetime.
Fascinating. Do you think that also has to do partially with our education system that's based around trying to be better than someone? And when we're trying to be better than someone, then we're essentially trying to do what they're doing, but in a better way. And then that makes us less authentically ourselves.
I think it's school. I think it's society. I think it's, we herd animals. So we always evaluate compared to, the others. And that's also what keeps us safe, people pleasing and adapting ourselves to others. It's part of safety mechanisms. So there's nothing wrong with it. The only issue is often when we are in our 20s and 30s, we suddenly realize, oof, is this really me? Why am I in this job? I don't really like it. And so that's when the self-exploration starts. And it's really a beautiful journey in discovering who we are. And I think it's a gift.
You've mentioned a lot of the time people create this machine of a business which they view and many other people view as success, but you've essentially trapped yourself in it by having to juggle and maintain and keep everything together day to day. And to me, that's not success. So what does it look like when we're actually running an organization rather than the organization running us?
Mm. The founder of Kinko's was an incredible man. He had a very peculiar life story. He had a really difficult start. He had lots of dyslexia and lots of learning disabilities. And he went on to build Kinko's and sell it for, I think, just over $2 billion to FedEx. And he always had this great quote, like, are you on your business or are you in your business? Mm-hmm. Being in your business is like you're firefighting and you're constantly being reactive instead of being sort of on your business and being responsive and going, okay, where's the trends going? There's AI coming here. There's, prototyping with, robotics over here. Sort of just being on top of your business to sort of steer your business into a direction. And yet, this is obviously easier said than done because a lot of what happens in business building is messy and it's having to be innovative and innovating on the fly. And so this is the hardest thing, is to pull yourself to build a business that can also, run itself without you being in it every single day. And that's part of why I do this coaching. It's sort of supporting founders on that journey to pull themselves out of the being in the detail every single day.
Do you agree, though, that a lot of the time people may think they're on their business, but they're still kind of in it because it requires their constant maintenance? So are you saying that what it means to be on your business is that it doesn't require you, or?
It will always require you. The question is, it's a journey. When you start something and you're the only person, you have to do the builds, you have to do the sales, you have to do the marketing, you have to do all the things. And as the company grows, slowly you have to stop doing things. You have to stop paying the bills and somebody else is meant to do them. Then you have to stop doing sales because somebody else is doing it. And that letting go is such a real act of surrender and trust that the people you've hired will have your back, right? And the whole it's sort of like a mother with their baby. The whole reason why the baby or the company is alive is because you've just given it your all. And so that it's more of a mindset. It's more of a intellectual and personality change of, I need to step back. I need to give it more space. It can breathe and live by itself. And so that is the journey. It's hard, and it requires many sort of iterations of a founder.
That's very interesting. I'm witnessing that a lot right now. I just joined a new startup in music tech, and I'm watching the founder who's I'm around my age in their early 20s, and they're letting go of things and letting me take responsibility, where I'm kind of like, should you pay attention to me more, or are you just going to let me do my thing, which I love the agency of, but it's also like a little bit of I'm not sure what we're supposed to be doing. Anyway, you have this, I guess, to go on a completely different tangent. You have this interest in consciousness and meditation, and this is something that I have a very extensive background in: inner exploration, interconnectedness of life. Me even saying this stuff may seem airheaded to people, though, but you and I know this is absolutely real stuff that has been explored extensively and scientifically in so many ways. What's your take on people being skeptical towards the idea of quote-unquote consciousness, and how do you see us going towards a future of like a mass adopted acceptance towards why people should explore going within and stuff like that?
I mean, I don't think anybody must do anything. And, I think if somebody has zero desire to do it, bless them. Go about your life, enjoy it. I sometimes think the unconscious life is maybe an easier one. But I think at the end, life is such a mystery. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What is this whole thing? And the minute we do shut our eyes and we wonder who's thinking here, like who am I? Like, is it my thoughts? Is it my head? Like, what exactly am I? And so when we do even spend 10 minutes by ourselves, sitting maybe in a peaceful forest or by a lake, to just ask that question, it very quickly arises that we can't pinpoint it. It's not like, here is the answer, and then off you go again. And so I think anybody who has some curiosity will follow that thread. And I would say anybody, usually for us humans, we learn when we're suffering. So the minute you've had a really intense breakup, or you've lost somebody, or God forbid, you're in a really deep, dark depression, that's usually when we go, what is this all about? And it leads us on this path of exploring consciousness or going to meditation. And in the end, all those tools are really there to create more inner peace. And I think if anybody has experienced peace, it's really the most, I think, way more than happiness. Having a certain level of peace within is truly the biggest gift. And so living life with a bit of peace is anything I can recommend. So there are the tools to allow for that. So I'm in. I'm sold.
Me too. Especially just through my own experience of what I've learned and received from all these practices. How did you come across this stuff, and how did you? What do you feel like you've gained from this kind of thing?
I got sent on the path very quickly. I think there's a call, you kind of, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And there was just a call. There was a call very early on when I was in 1920 to go do ayahuasca. And there was a call for meditation. I heard about a silent meditation. I'm like, oh my God, 10 days in silence? That sounds crazy. Who would do that? Let me try it. And so I think I've always been drawn to just really explore my own consciousness and explore the edges of what's possible with my mind. And I would say the underlying driver was on the outside, good-looking childhood, but on the inside, in many ways, a emotionally dead childhood. Like I love my parents. I'm here with my parents. And yet there were just a lot of things that as a child I just didn't get. Call it, generational trauma, call it, if they didn't know better, they did their best with what they had. And yet I knew that there was something fundamentally missing in my life. And so I think often when we have a certain level of trauma in childhood, and it doesn't have to be, horrific, but when we notice something is just, we don't feel super aligned in ourselves, we're having a hard time to make clear decisions, or we're having a hard time being in relationship with others, or in an intimate relationship, these are usually signs that there's something that happened. And by the way, for most of it that happened, so many of us have issues in relating because we just didn't grow up properly to mature humans at age 18 or 21. And so I think for many, it's a healing journey. And so what did I get? I got so much healing. I mean, if I compare, I read diaries from 20 years ago when I was like 20, and I'm like, wow, I'm a radically different person because how I relate to the world has changed. And therefore, I couldn't be more grateful for the journey I've been on, even though it's been at times really brutal, really, really hard to sort of face these inner demons and to face these very hard things. But on the other side of a hard thing is always freedom and more joy.
Speaking of going through hard things and gaining certain things from that, you posted two different things on Twitter, which I've debated with people extensively about, like acceptance and compassion towards whatever is happening in life tends to bring about change and resolution much faster than pure perseverance. But you've also acknowledged that between the life we live and the unveiled life within us is resistance. So this is kind of like a paradoxical thing, which people debate endlessly with me about, do we persevere or do we accept, and does accepting make us complacent? And so how do you you know what I'm saying?
I think this is where language is suboptimal. Yeah, we're trying to put language on something that is for everybody slightly different and yet so profound, right? And because I would hope maybe in 20 years from now we have other words for describing this, because pushing through and complacency sounds like they are at the opposite ends, but they're actually fundamentally different things with regards to this inner work. And so the way that I see it is more, let's say you're facing a really big issue with a person in your life, or you notice there's something going on there. There is this ability to accept the situation as it is. Okay, I'm having a real issue with my partner. So I'm not running away from it, right? So this is often when in the beginning we might just break up, or we might just become workaholics, because something in us can't face the fact that this person might not be right for us, or this person is really triggering us. Okay, so accepting the truth is, to me, okay, there is an issue with this person, and then it is, okay, how do we work on it? And so accepting a situation has nothing to do with, okay, I'm just sitting here hanging out waiting for something to change. No, it's I accept the situation is difficult, and I'm going to see if I can find a therapist so we can work this through. So it's not either or, it's and. Yeah, I accept it and I do stuff, right? So, and again, I'm trying to put words on something that is a very internal dynamic. People who've gone through something like that can relate, and yet I think sometimes our language is insufficient to really explain these very, very, very integer, small, minute energetics that happen within us.
I agree. It's an and, it's not an or. I see people talk about to achieve, you must like put yourself through intentional suffering, which I've done in the past and didn't seem to work out very well. That's not to say today I don't try to strive as hard as I can, but I also try to simultaneously be as joyful and accepting as possible while still pushing myself and going through the natural kind of difficulty that entails. So yes, I agree 100%. Why do you think people feel like they have to suffer in order to succeed?
I think in many ways there is a lot of narrative around that. And I think the question is always, what does succeed mean, right? So if you're really talking about building a huge company that is worth, loads and loads of money, then indeed there's a huge amount of sacrifice, and there's going to be long hours that are going to be worked, for sure. Now, at the same time, and this is the hard thing, many people come in to wanting to be successful because there's a bit of trauma there from childhood where they are desperate to get seen, acknowledged, clapped by, because somewhere in childhood they didn't get that sense of fulfillment and love, right? And so this trauma that we can see in many, many famous CEOs gives them this extraordinary drive to perform. Extraordinary drive. And, it totally fulfills its function. And yet I would like to question, for many CEOs who are like that, when they do reach their goal, it's not forever blissful, and it's not what they hope to be, right? And there's some people who just go from collecting one gold medal to the next accolade, and then it's another thing. And that feeling of emptiness, or that feeling of not enoughness, just doesn't go away. And so to me, I have, when I used to also have patterns like that in my 20s and 30s, and when I also thought the harder I push myself, the better I'm going to be, I've totally had to reverse that. I went through a really intense burnout 9 years ago, and I really questioned, who am I? Like, why am I pushing myself so hard? And I think when you really allow for that unfolding of who you are, the majority of us are not lazy, but we just need to follow what actually brings us joy, and where we feel aliveness, and where we feel excitement. And some of us have never learned to know where to go because of school, right?
Mm.
Children learn to follow our curiosity. We all love to learn and we're excited about stuff. Then we wouldn't have to just, in my mind, drive ourselves so badly and drive ourselves in the ground, because the cost of losing your health, the cost of losing your mental health, the cost of years of gruelingness don't make up for the carrot at the end. You've lost too many years.
Yeah, and it's also like the carrots are very fleeting. You do all this work, and for a second it feels like, wow, I've made it, I did it, and all this was, but then it's like gone. So, what, what, yeah, why? It just slipped off the tip of my tongue. You said something in particular. Oh, burnout. So, I personally have I personally don't believe in burnout. I mean, I know it exists, but I think that the way people look at it tends to be different from, like, I think you can just keep going and going and going depending on if you've like mastered the art of rest, essentially, which I have yet to do, but I'm trying every day. What is burnout to you in your perspective?
To me, it's a process of burning out belief systems and notions that you've held very firmly about yourself. So to me, the notion was I need to climb the highest mountains and do the most difficult things to get acknowledged and to get recognized and to be worthy of, God only knows, the acknowledgement of others. And I think for me, burning out to that degree where I just had panic attacks and anxiety the whole time. And the doctor's like, here, take the pills. And I was like, no, clearly something is not right. Like, yeah. And I had to just stop working for a year. And I think it was really like this process of like, am I actually on the right path? Like, why is this happening? And it was a total recalibration of what my life should be about. Total recalibration. Right. And I think burnout can be that, what I've experienced. And for some people, it's just this fact that somewhere along the lines, they haven't learned to listen to their body and to their body's needs, whether that's food, whether it's sports, whether it's rest. And so, yes, we can intellectually push ourselves again and again and again. And yet at some point, the body will put in the brakes. At some point, he'll go, dude, if you don't listen, I'm going to just stop. And so that is kind of burnout. I think it's the way we perceive our body and the way that we misuse ourselves to achieve certain, often egotistical ideas and dreams of ourselves, instead of realizing this whole thing, body, mind, and soul, is the holy thing. And unless all three parts get to the end, there is no result. If only my mind gets what it wants and the rest gets left behind, I can tell you it's not going to be fulfilling, meaningful, or happy.
That was actually perfectly stated in my own experience. Burnout has always resulted from having to recalibrate. Is what I'm doing taking me where I want to go, or where even do I want to go? And that causing me to have to like step back and figure out the situation, and feeling distressed by the whole thing, or challenging these preconceived notions about myself and what I want out of life. That was very, very well said. Thank you. What else? You interact with so many entrepreneurs around the world, and I consider myself a very internationally minded person. I don't know if you're familiar with this Swedish guy who designed the international flag of planet Earth, but I literally have it tattooed on my hand, and so
I love it. I subscribe to that.
I love the idea of embracing humanity as a whole and being enthusiastic about everything that's going on around the world, because humans are interesting. What cool stuff have you seen over the years of how like entrepreneurship or startup ecosystems in different parts of the world are?
Gosh, complex question. I think every ecosystem has its total uniqueness, whether it's Kenya or South Africa, or across India. I think I'm personally more drawn to entrepreneurs who are really fixing very essential problems. So I love second and third world countries and their entrepreneurs, because they're really solving issues, big issues in their lives, where sometimes I have the feeling in the first world, there is so much money that we solve. Yeah, maybe they're not the most pressing issues, like having delivery at your house at any given time. But that's just my, that's just me. I really have deep respect for, entrepreneurs who are, figuring out solutions to very difficult problems and are trying to make a positive impact in their communities or in their country. So, therefore for me, whether it's India, across Africa, I've met such extraordinary humans who are, really working their asses off to create something that doesn't exist right now. And I love it, but every community has these, game changers, these people who are, really on the front lines trying to change, society and culture as it is. And so therefore they are everywhere. And I think it's anybody who goes on an entrepreneurial, journey, really kudos, because it is truly one of the hardest things you can do. It takes such courage and such incredible determination and will and all the things, that I kudos to all of them, no matter what you build. Just personally, I'm very drawn to sort of people in the sort of second and third world.
What do you have any examples of specific people you've interacted with, or specific companies or situations or specific countries that you find the most fascinating in terms of what's going on today with their entrepreneurs?
I mean, as I just mentioned, these kind of countries, and I think, I find it fascinating as sort of the internet is getting more and more mainstream. We sort of think it is mainstream, but then if you see, India has 1 billion people and more, not everybody's on a phone yet. And as the internet spreads, all these tools that you find on YouTube and the podcast, I mean, I'm just blown away by the incredible wisdom, knowledge, and information we can all access for more or less free. Yeah. On the internet, and the stuff you can then do with it, right? I mean, somebody the other day just posted on LinkedIn about, building a deck with ChatGPT-4, being able to fundraise with some other tool. And there was just a list of tools that you can use to build your company, And so we're living in such extraordinary times where the access to the internet is catalyzing such extraordinary change that I find it fascinating for countries that are not on the internet yet, or don't have the power of a telephone in their hand yet, and what that will, allow or make happen for them over the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I agree 100%. As everybody around the world starts to get access to the giant knowledge share of the internet and how we all get to just share our ideas with each other, and it's so interesting. It's fun because it's almost like a giant collaborative game of let's figure out how to help each other figure stuff out. Yeah. I love that. You have a lot of experience with investing, and I personally have always had a strong bias for bootstrapping everything, but over time, as I've watched entrepreneurs raise funds and been a part of startups who've raised funds and befriended more investors, my experience has kind of shifted. I still don't know when investment is truly that useful and why. It's still unclear. So I'd love to hear your opinion of what's the best application or scenarios for value creation when it comes to things like venture capital.
Oh gosh, that is a big question. I think, at the end, whether you bootstrap or whether you get investment, it's a very personal journey that everybody needs to decide for themselves. I think venture capital, or any capital, growth capital, or there's so many different kind of ways to get. There's debt capital, there's inventory capital. There's all these different kind of capitals that I think people will go to at the moment of realizing that the company has product market fit. They are suddenly accelerating and they simply don't have the funds to grow fast enough, right? So if you realize you have an awesome product and people are buying it, And yet you cannot produce more of the product one way or another, or hire more people to make more of what you're selling. You need money, right? Otherwise it would be silly, because you can only make 20 of them a day and you're selling.
It'll take too long. Yeah.
Geez. It's not a one size fits all. I have, out of my current client portfolio, I'm quite blown away. I have 8 bootstrap companies, and that's just extraordinary. And I love working with them. And there's such a sense of ownership and generational wealth potentially behind these individuals that I find incredibly inspiring and empowering, right? And so I don't have a particular opinion, because I think it's very specific to where you're at in your founder journey and what are your needs as a company and where do you want to take the company.
I'm really resonant with this theme that you're giving over the course of this conversation, that a lot of these things, whether it's what's the right application for VC or what does great leadership look like, that it's all a very personal situation that depends on the individual and who they are and their circumstances. So I agree with that. And I think people talk too much about this one size fits all kind of application of things. And what do you think that tendency is like? Oh, what's the thing that everybody should do?
I think it's like these lists. Okay, you see them all the time on Twitter. You always see them all the time on LinkedIn. It's like the 10 things to have a great morning. The 20 things how to be a successful person. The 50 things on, mistakes you should never make. And they get so many likes. And you kind of go, seriously? Are you kidding me? Like, honestly, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I laugh about it, but I also understand that for our mind, it's when we see these lists and if we see boxes and we're like, okay, somebody's raised 20 million, that must make him a successful person. The person has been married, and from the outside, he has a Porsche and a great house, that must make him a happy person. The leader that is like this, we are so externally focused. It's just how over the last 50 years, society, advertising, etc., has primed us to be. And while I'm not faulting all of it, if we don't really develop our own inner compass, deeply, truly, to what feels good to me, what is the right decision for me, what makes sense to me, if we don't do that, we miss on great opportunities. 2009, I left a company and I took a year out, went traveling, and everybody's like, are you crazy at this time of your career to just take a year out? You have all the opportunities. And I came back and nobody cared, right? And so if we listen too much to what people say instead of, what do I really want? We will build a life where people, this is where midlife crises come from. They suddenly 50 and they wake up and they're like, what the heck is this? Like, whose life doesn't feel or look like me? And who, by the way, is this wife or husband that I'm lying next to?
Yikes.
Right? And that's the midlife crises. And so the only way to prevent that is if we are really relentlessly ourselves and really try and build that inner compass to go, ooh, does this feel good to me? Not just here. This is not just because I'm going to get likes and because people think I'm so cool because I've raised 20 million. Is this physically feel like the right decision for me? And just that question to our body, because our body holds a lot more wisdom than we often do in our heads. Just checking in with ourselves. Does this person that we're sitting here on a date with, does that person make me feel relaxed? Do I feel at ease here? Is there ease in this? Just to gather more information around the situation, because often our heads are so strong in thinking, this is great, this is the next thing, when our body might be saying, absolutely not. I'm hearing a ton of red flags. I don't want this. And so that inner compass is, I think, something, if you really are after a fulfilling and meaningful life, something that truly feels like, wow, I've lived a very unique life, truly unique to me, it's the only thing that's going to get us there.
100%. That's a great note to end on, actually. But before we do, out of curiosity, what was Google X like? It seems like it was like innovation central. Is that where the X Prize comes from, or is that something different?
No, the ex-Paris is actually Peter Diamandis,
Oh,
who
right.
is also very closely related to the Singularity University and a mastermind of innovation in and itself. Google X is the innovation lab of Google. This is where the driverless car was invented. This was where many, many other inventions were created, and it's truly an extraordinary place because the entire, the most innovative, smart, incredibly brilliant people come together. It's a very small organization. It's like 300 to 400 people, and they're building things that have never, ever, ever been dreamed of. So it's been an honor to be there, and it was an extraordinary time because I got to meet really some of the most impactful and innovative scientists around the world, really working on what we call a breakthrough or moonshot, which is a technological breakthrough that has the ability to impact 1 billion people's lives over the next 10 years. And so these are really extraordinary things. And yeah, it was incredibly hard work, and it was exhilarating, and I learned a ton while being there.
Awesome, awesome. It reminds me of my friend Gabe Tavis when I was 14, that first person I ever partnered with on trying to make products and stuff. And today he's making wood from bacteria
Wow.
to that mimics exotic woods to combat deforestation. And so that's the kind of like forward thinking stuff that is
Awesome.
like.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this stuff.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Georgia. This was awesome. If you have any closing remarks or things you want to plug, stuff you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Matt. This has been a really interesting and fascinating conversation. Thanks for inviting me. And all I can say is that if anybody is looking for these tools that I talked about earlier, who needs a little helping hand on how to do your one-on-ones or how to deal with investor relations, there is the Matt Mochary, Mochary, Mochary Method online curriculum. It's for free. It's all there, or you can look at the book, The Great CEO Within. And it's a small book. You can read it even if you get very little sleep, to just check, hey, what are the things I could do differently? And I can highly recommend it.
Well, thank you. That's great. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day.
Brilliant.